Ladies and gentlemen, Behind the Line proudly presents to you another exciting edition of The Woke! Turning on the woke. This episode is brought to you by Duncan and Duncan. Have you violated the woke commandments? Have your vapid transgressions put you in a situation where you need to atone for your sins? If so, contact the experts at Duncan and Duncan. The associates at Duncan and Duncan can help you craft the perfect, insincere apology. Our associates will walk you through the process of transgression. We offer grief counseling. We offer small group sessions that we call Apologist Anonymous, where sinners can share their transgressions in a safe space. Contact us today at www.duncanandduncan.fu. Oh, we have another violator. We have another sinner at the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. You know, yesterday was the final day for Skip Bayless on Undisputedly Boring. It was kind of sad because most people didn't know until the show was already over. Of course, most people didn't know that Undisputedly Boring was still on the air. For decades, Skip Bayless has been heavily criticized for his obsession with LeBron James. He's been accused of mythical racism. He has been accused of being heavily biased towards the NBA's Lord and Risen King. In the eyes of Skippy, Bron could not do anything right. If the Lakers won by double digits and LeBron had 40 and 15, Skip, he would be talking about the 2 missed free throws in the first quarter. If LeBron James walked on water, Skip would claim it was ice. If LeBron fed starving children in Ethiopia, Skip, he would blame LeBron for creating the next generation of Lizzos. For 2 decades, Skip Bayless has been decimated for his obsession with Bron. Less than 24 hours after his low-profile exit from the mainstream media, it seems like we already have someone stepping in to replace Skip Bayless. For months now, Sheryl Swoopes, she has been obsessed with Caitlin Clark. Now, for those that don't know, Sheryl Swoopes, she is employee number 1 in the WNBA dump. She was the very first dump diver that was hired. She is known affectionately amongst her colleagues as the original pooper swooper. Over the last several months, she has taken a break from scooping the doodle to downplay the impact of Caitlin Clark. And for some reason, she doesn't receive the same level of backlash that Skip Bayless received with LeBron James. If a fellow parishioner at Woke United Methodist has the audacity to highlight her bullshit, they immediately issue an insincere public apology, which is exactly what happened yesterday with Elle Duncan. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Several months ago, when Caitlin Clark was still playing basketball professionally at Iowa, Sheryl Swoopes, she made what the media called some inaccurate statements about Caitlin Clark. Yeah, the rest of us called it lies. According to the original pooper swooper, Katie Rue Clark, she was breaking scoring records at Iowa because she was taking 40 shots a game, when the reality is Caitlin Clark averaged 20 shots a game, half that number. According to the original swooper, Caitlin Clark was the first athlete in the history of college sports to be given an additional year of eligibility to break scoring records. Sheryl Swoopes claimed that Caitlin Clark played 5 years at Iowa. I guess Sherry has trouble counting past 4. Earlier this week, Sheryl Swoopes, she was once again giving unvalidated, unnecessary criticism to Caitlin Clark. And she was doing this in a desperate attempt to get Angel Reese selected as Rookie Dump Diver of the Year. The pooper swooper, she hosts a podcast called Queens of the Court. With the podcast focusing on the unknown players in the WNBA, Sheryl Swoopes, she hired an unknown young woman named Jordan to co-host this dump that covers the dump. Sheryl Swoopes, She is considered to be an expert when it comes to the pretend basketball in the WNBA. When other shows need someone to analyze a missed layup, they call Sheryl Swoopes. When they need someone to explain why WNBA players consistently drop wide open passes, they call the swooper. When your neighbor does some spring cleaning and they need their trash picked up a day early, they call the swooper. Earlier this week, Sheryl Swoopes, she was downplaying the impact of Caitlin Clark while pretending that Angel Reese is the second coming of Cheryl Miller. Listen for yourself, but keep this in mind. This is supposedly a WNBA expert. Sheryl Swoopes, she supposedly watches the WNBA. She claims to pay close attention to this league. Keep that in mind as you listen to this abundance of bullshit. Roll the clip.
I don't know if Chicago's in the playoffs right now without Angel. Is Indiana in the playoffs right now without Caitlin? I don't
know. No. Last year, no.
Well, but they were close, right? But when you look at the overall team, like the pieces that they have, without question, Indiana has better players than Chicago.
What? Excuse me? Come again? For starters, credit to Jordan Unknown for her willingness to call out this stupidity. Let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. According to Sheryl Swoopes, the Chicago Bravado, they would not make the playoffs without Angel Reese. And the Indiana Felines, they would be back-to-back winners of the WNBA Finals, securing all-season rights to the Golden Toilet and bathrooms with running water. Do I have that right? I don't watch the WNBA, and even I know that is what the mainstream media calls misinformation. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the Chicago Bravado secure all-season rights to the Golden Toilet 2 or 3 years ago? Didn't the Bravado win the WNBA Finals when Angel Reese was still playing high school basketball in high school gyms instead of WNBA basketball in high school gyms? The reason I remember this so vividly is because we covered the Bravado's victory here on the channel. Now, of course, we didn't cover the actual series. No one else did either. The reason I remember the Bravado's championship is because they held their championship parade in downtown Chicago and no one showed up. There were more people on the floats than there were in the streets. That wasn't all that long ago, maybe 3 years ago. The Bravado, they have been a consistent playoff team for the last 5 or 6 years. Now, contrast that with the Indiana Felines. There is a reason that the Indiana Felines had the #1 pick in the draft in back-to-back years. It wasn't because they were dominating the dump, it's because they sucked. The Felines haven't made the playoffs since 2016, haven't had a winning season since 2015. This year, the Felines are 4 games under 500, and they're currently in the playoffs. They're also 1 spot ahead in the standings of the Chicago Bravado, meaning right now, the Felines are the better team. There's only one difference between this year and last year: Caitlin Clark. So, pooper swooper, please explain to me how Caitlin Clark hasn't made an impact. Please explain how Caitlin Clark isn't the better player. To her credit and my temporary amazement, Elle Duncan, she was willing to call out Sheryl Swoopes on her clear hatred of Caitlin Clark. Elle Duncan hosts a show on ESPN's YouTube channel called The Elle Duncan Show. As you can see, they had many sleepless nights coming up with a creative name for this show. Like her colleague and huge embarrassing failure, Bomani Jones, very few people listen to the Elle Duncan Show. It absolutely amazes me how some of these people, they have the benefit of the massive ESPN platform and they still can't draw an audience. ESPN has over 12 million subscribers here on YouTube. I have, over 110,000? Yet for some reason, Elle Duncan struggles. She struggles to reach 10,000 views. I wonder why. Anyway, to her temporary credit, Elle Duncan, she was willing to call out Sheryl Swoopes and her hatred of Caitlin Clark. Watch for yourself.
By saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark. By saying that like Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying that, and I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's Caitlin, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese. So I don't take any issue with that part. But the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Sheryl and why. And I don't know if some of that is driven in sort of the hurt that she felt from the fan base or some of the attacks that were leveled at her after she had those comments a few months ago. But this feels really, really, really off par. This just doesn't feel right at all. And it is starting to feel a little bit like hate from Sheryl.
I'm sure you guys noticed Elle Duncan was being very careful with her criticism of Sheryl Swoopes. As you guys know, it is a clear violation of the woke commandments for a parishioner of Woke United Methodist to criticize another parishioner. It's an even bigger violation for a parishioner to speak the truth. Elle Duncan, who teaches gender-neutral Sunday school classes at Woke United Methodist, she was guilty of both violations. Now, I didn't think Elle Duncan said anything wrong here. She was polite, she was respectful. Basically, she explained what this really is. Sheryl Swoopes has a clear bias against Caitlin Clark. Now, some people claim it is racially motivated. Maybe they're right. I don't know. I can't get inside the mind of Sheryl Swoopes. But there is no doubt Sheryl Swoopes has a clear bias against Caitlin Clark. That's all Elle Duncan was saying. She was just pointing out the obvious. Yet, for some reason, she felt the need to do this. Oh, Sherry, I'm so sorry. I apologize for telling the truth. Please forgive me and always remember the song I wrote about you. Oh, Sherry, our love holds on. What the hell's going on here? I feel like I keep asking this same question, but since when did we start apologizing for telling the truth? I'm sure Sheryl Swoopes texted Elle Duncan pissed off about what she said. I'm sure Sherry told Ellie that her feelings were hurt. Who fucking cares? The truth has never cared about your feelings. Look. I don't care that Sheryl Swoopes is biased against Caitlin Clark. We all have our own personal biases. For example, I am biased against Draymond Green. We were talking about this the other day on the channel Discord server. I don't like Draymond Green. I think he's the most overrated player in the NBA. I think he is a role player who disguises himself as a superstar. If Draymond Green was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, no one's ever heard of him. But the difference between me and Sheryl Swoopes, I'm upfront with my bias. I give you full transparency. I have no problem telling you that I don't like Draymond Green. Sheryl Swoopes, she can criticize Caitlin Clark all she wants. No one agrees with her, but she can criticize her all she wants. She can claim that Angel Reese is the best rookie in the WNBA. The problem is, Sheryl Swoopes, she pretends to be neutral. That's what Elle Duncan was calling out, and I would have respected her for doing so if she hadn't apologized. Apologize for what? For telling the truth? Give me your thoughts on this. Sheryl Swoopes, once again, shows her clear bias against Caitlin Clark. She claims the Indiana Felines would be a playoff team without the assistance of Katie Rue. Elle Duncan calls Sheryl Swoopes out for her bias, and then she apologizes for it. Maybe, just maybe, this is the reason that both of these women are struggling to draw an audience. They're inauthentic. Give me your thoughts. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.